Watch to the end. In this video, you will hear 3 stories. The last one will shock you. Do you think you've heard about the recent quarrel between Trump and Kim Jong-un? Trump and Zelensky? Trump and Putin? You're wrong, because today I'm going to show you the full version of these dialogues. At the end of the 3rd story, you will learn shocking news. These 3 stories have shocked millions of people, and they will change your perception of the current president. In the 1st story, you will hear the recent dialogue between Trump and Kim Jong-un, as well as a secret call to Putin. In the 2nd story, you will hear the recent quarrel between Trump and Zelensky. In the 3rd story, you will hear a classified conflict between Trump and Putin. All characters are fictional. Any coincidences are accidental, and the author is not responsible for any consequences.
The meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un began with a historic handshake at the Demilitarized Zone, DMZ, between North and South Korea. The atmosphere was cordial at first, but as the leaders moved into the Freedom House for private negotiations, tensions quickly escalated over the topic of Russia's war with Ukraine. The opening exchange. Trump: "It's good to see you again, Kim. You're looking well. But let's cut to the chase. I've got a lot on my plate: Ukraine, Russia, China, you name it. And frankly, Zelensky's becoming a real headache. He's ungrateful, always begging for more money, more weapons. I gave him javelins, I gave him billions, and what does he do? He complains. Can you believe that?" Author's note. Trump's opening is classic Trump brash, self-centered and dismissive. He's positioning himself as the aggrieved party, frustrated by Zelensky's demands. His tone reflects his transactional view of international relations, where gratitude is expected in exchange for aid. Kim Jong-un: "President Trump, I must say, I find your attitude toward Zelensky surprising. Ukraine is a sovereign nation fighting for its survival. Zelensky is a leader defending his people. You speak of gratitude. But what about your duty to uphold global stability? Or is that no longer a priority for America?" Author's note. Kim's response is measured but pointed. He's positioning himself as a defender of sovereignty, perhaps to contrast his own regime's isolationist policies. His tone is calm, but carries an undercurrent of criticism, challenging Trump's narrative. Trump: "Global stability? Don't talk to me about global stability. I've been the one keeping the world in check. Remember my 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum? I did that to protect American jobs, to show the world we're not a doormat. And let me tell you, it worked. Even your country felt the heat, didn't it, Kim?" Author's note. Trump's reference to the steel tariffs is a power move, reminding Kim of his economic leverage. His tone is boastful, reflecting his belief in his own policies as a tool of dominance. Kim Jong-un: "Your tariffs hurt many nations, including mine. But we adapted. We survived. Unlike Zelensky, who is fighting for his country's very existence. You speak of tariffs, but what about the cost of war? What about the lives lost in Ukraine? Or do you only care about dollars and cents?" Author's note. Kim's response is sharp, turning the conversation back to Ukraine. He's appealing to moral arguments, perhaps to deflect from his own regime's human rights abuses. His tone is defiant, challenging Trump's priorities. Trump: "Listen, Kim, Zelensky's a comedian who thinks he's a hero. He's playing with fire, and he's going to get burned. I've given him everything, and he still acts like it's not enough. He's weak, desperate, and frankly, he's embarrassing himself on the world stage." Author's note. Trump's tone is dismissive and insulting, reflecting his frustration with Zelensky's perceived ingratitude. His words reveal a lack of empathy for Ukraine's plight, focusing instead on his own grievances. Kim Jong-un: "President Trump, your words are reckless. Zelensky may be desperate, but he is fighting for his people. You call him weak, but it takes strength to stand against a superpower like Russia. Perhaps you should look in the mirror and ask yourself why you are so quick to abandon an ally." Author's note. Kim's response is a direct challenge to Trump's leadership. He's positioning himself as a voice of reason, contrasting Trump's transactional approach with a more principled stance. His tone is calm, but carries a clear rebuke. The plot twist. As the argument reaches its peak, an aide bursts into the room holding a tablet. The aide whispers something to Trump, who immediately turns to Kim with a smirk. Trump. Well, Kim. It seems Zelensky's been talking behind our backs. He just gave an interview where he called us both useless and said he doesn't need our help anymore. Can you believe the arrogance of this guy? Author's note. The plot twist introduces a shocking development, shifting the dynamics of the conversation. Trump's tone is a mix of vindication and anger, as he uses the news to undermine Zelensky's credibility. Kim Jong-un, initially silent. Then his expression darkens. Is this true? Zelensky said that? After everything we've discussed? This is unacceptable. If he cannot appreciate the efforts of those trying to help him, then perhaps he deserves to face the consequences alone. Author's note. Kim's reaction is a dramatic shift. His initial defense of Zelensky crumbles as he feels personally insulted. His tone is cold and calculating, reflecting his own pride and sensitivity to perceived slights. Trump. See, Kim, I told you. Zelensky's a lost cause. He's biting the hand that feeds him. Maybe it's time we both cut him loose and let him figure it out on his own. Author's note. Trump's tone is triumphant, as if he's won the argument. His words reflect his transactional mindset, where loyalty is paramount, and betrayal is met with swift retribution. Kim Jong-un, after a long pause. Perhaps you are right, President Trump. Zelensky's arrogance is unacceptable. But let us not forget the bigger picture. Russia's actions threaten us all. If we abandon Ukraine, we risk emboldening Putin further. This is not just about Zelensky, it's about the balance of power. Author's note. Kim's final words reveal a strategic shift. While he now dislikes Zelensky, he's still wary of Russia's growing influence. His tone is pragmatic, reflecting his focus on long-term geopolitical stability. The sun was setting over the White House, casting long shadows across the Rose Garden. Donald Trump, seated behind his massive desk, was fuming. He had just received news that one of his closest associates, a prominent businessman named Robert Bobby Langston, had been robbed by a group connected to Kim Jong-un. To make matters worse, another friend of his, a former Navy officer named Mike Harrington, had narrowly escaped an attempted kidnapping during a recent trip to South Korea. The tension in the air was palpable as Trump dialed Kim's number. Trump, voice low and seething. Kim, we need to talk. This is unacceptable. My friend Bobby was robbed by your thugs, and another close associate almost got snatched right off the street. What kind of regime are you running over there? Author's note. Trump's tone is aggressive and confrontational, reflecting his frustration and protectiveness over his inner circle. His opening is classic Trump, blunt and accusatory, with little regard for diplomatic niceties. Kim Jong-un calmly, with a hint of irritation. Donald, I assure you, my people are not responsible for this. You know how it is. Rumors and misunderstandings can escalate quickly. I have no control over every individual in my country. Author's note. Kim's response is measured but defensive. He's quick to deflect blame, emphasizing the chaotic nature of his regime. His tone reflects his awareness of the complexities of his rule and his desire to avoid direct confrontation. Trump, cutting him off. Misunderstandings? This isn't just some diplomatic faux pas, Kim. This is about safety. If your people think they can just take what they want from Americans, we have a serious problem on our hands. Author's note. Trump's tone escalates, reflecting his anger and frustration. He's not interested in excuses. He wants action. His words reveal a transactional mindset, where loyalty and safety are paramount. Kim Jong-un sighing. You know as well as I do that my leadership is often challenged by those who wish to undermine our stability. But let's be clear, my regime does not condone such actions. It's bad for business and even worse for diplomacy. Author's note. Kim's response is pragmatic, acknowledging the potential fallout of such incidents. His tone is calm, but carries an undercurrent of frustration, reflecting his awareness of the delicate balance he must maintain. Trump, I expect you to take responsibility for this. I don't care if it was a rogue group or not. It happened under your watch. You need to show some strength here, Kim. Author's note. Trump's tone is demanding, reflecting his belief in personal accountability. His words are a challenge to Kim's authority, pushing him to take decisive action. Kim Jong-un, voice rising slightly. Strength? Is that what you think this is about? You throw accusations without understanding the full picture. My servant Taze. A servant was involved in the kidnapping attempt on Mike Harrington. It was a mistake fueled by insults meant for me. I will not tolerate this behavior. Author's note. Kim's tone shifts, revealing a crack in his stoic facade. His admission of fault is a strategic move, aimed at diffusing the situation while maintaining his authority. His words reflect his pride and sensitivity to perceived slights. Trump pausing, taken aback. Wait, what? Your servant? So you admit it? Author's note. Trump's tone is one of surprise, reflecting his shock at Kim's admission. His words reveal a shift from confrontation to curiosity, as he begins to see an opportunity for negotiation. Kim Jong-un. Yes, but it was all based on a misunderstanding. Someone insulted me, and in a fit of misguided loyalty he acted out. I will have him imprisoned for this affront to both our nations. Author's note. Kim's tone is firm but conciliatory, reflecting his willingness to take responsibility while deflecting blame onto a subordinate. His words reveal a pragmatic approach to diplomacy, aimed at preserving his regime's stability. Trump, suddenly more composed. All right, let's talk about how we can resolve this. If you're willing to hold your servant accountable, then maybe we can work something out here. I need assurance that my friends are safe when they travel in your territory. Author's note. Trump's tone shifts to one of negotiation, reflecting his ability to pivot from anger to pragmatism. His words reveal a transactional mindset, where accountability is exchanged for assurances. Kim Jong-un. I can assure you that this incident will not go unpunished. But let us also discuss how we can improve our relations. After all, we both stand to benefit from stability rather than chaos. Author's note. Kim's tone is conciliatory, reflecting his desire to turn a crisis into an opportunity for diplomacy. His words reveal a strategic understanding of the benefits of cooperation. Trump nodding slowly. You're right. Let's find a way to use this situation to strengthen our dialogue. Perhaps we could arrange for more direct communication channels between our teams. It would prevent these misunderstandings in the future. Author's note. Trump's tone is collaborative, reflecting his willingness to explore solutions. His words reveal a pragmatic approach to diplomacy, aimed at preventing future conflicts. After the call, Trump reflected on the meeting with Kim at the DMZ. I want to thank him. If he hadn't shown up after I posted the invitation on social media, the press would have put me in a very bad light, Trump said to his aides. As the dust settled, Trump and South Korean President Moon Jae-in escorted Kim Jong-un to the demarcation line. The image of the three leaders standing together was powerful, but the underlying tensions were undeniable. Trump's character. Trump's aggressive tone reflects his characteristic bravado and protectiveness over his inner circle. His instinct is to strike first and assert dominance, believing that confrontation will yield respect and resolution. However, his ability to pivot from anger to negotiation showcases his adaptability, a hallmark of his leadership style. Kim Jong-un's character. Kim's response hints at the complexities of his rule. Must balance maintaining authority while navigating the chaotic elements within his own regime. His admission of fault demonstrates a willingness to engage in diplomacy, albeit begrudgingly. His pragmatic approach to resolving the crisis highlights his strategic understanding of international relations. Impact on global politics. The fallout from this call could have far-reaching consequences. If both leaders can find common ground, it could lead to improved relations between the U.S. and North Korea. However, the underlying tensions and mistrust remain, highlighting the fragile nature of their relationship. Conclusion. Trump's unorthodox diplomacy had once again created a spectacle, but the question remained, what had it achieved? The world watched, waiting to see if this latest chapter in Trump's reality show presidency would lead to lasting change or simply more drama. This dialogue underscores the high-stakes nature of international diplomacy, where personal grievances and misunderstandings can escalate into major conflicts. The world watches as these two unpredictable figures navigate their tumultuous relationship, aware that their decisions could ripple across continents, affecting lives far beyond their own borders. And yet, in their shared humanity and vulnerability, lay the seeds for a future where dialogue might just prevail over discord.
Trump and Zelensky sat in the Oval Office, the weight of global politics hanging heavy in the air. Trump leaned forward, his tone both commanding and calculated, as he began his monologue. Trump: I am friends with each of these presidents, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to make deals. I can be more violent than any other president you know, but then America won't make a deal. We don't just talk, we act. And right now, the world is watching. Ukraine is burning, and if we don't act decisively, this could spiral into World War I too. Do you understand the stakes here? Author's note: Trump's opening is classic Trump brash, self-assured, and laced with a mix of threat and promise. His tone reflects his belief in his own deal-making prowess, but it also reveals his tendency to center himself in every narrative, even one as grave as war. JD, standing to the side, interjected with a calm but pointed rebuttal. JD: I want to answer that. For 4 years, we had President Biden, who spoke harshly about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant part of the country. The path to peace and prosperity lies in diplomacy, not chest-thumping. America became great because it engaged in diplomacy, and that's exactly what President Trump is doing. But let's not pretend words alone will stop tanks. Author's note: JD's response is measured, attempting to balance Trump's bravado with a call for pragmatism. His reference to Biden's failures is a subtle jab at the previous administration, but his emphasis on diplomacy reveals a more strategic, less impulsive mindset. Zelensky, his face etched with the weariness of a leader whose nation is under siege, leaned forward, his voice steady but laced with frustration. Zelensky: May I ask? Putin has occupied our territories since 2014. There was Obama, then Trump, then Biden, and now Trump again. And I hope Trump stops him. But the situation hasn't changed since 2014. People continue to die on the front lines. We've talked many times, made deals, signed ceasefires like the one with Macron and Merkel in 2019, but Putin doesn't stop. He violates every agreement. He kills our people, refuses to exchange prisoners. What kind of diplomacy are you talking about, JD? Author's note: Zelensky's response is raw and impassioned, reflecting the desperation of a leader who has seen too many promises broken. His tone is accusatory, not just at Putin, but at the West for its perceived inaction. He's a man who has lost faith in words and is demanding action. JD shot back, his voice rising slightly, a hint of impatience creeping in. JD: I'm talking about diplomacy that will end the destruction of your country. I think it's disrespectful of you, Zelensky, to come into the Oval Office and air this in public. Now you're sending people to the front lines because you don't have enough manpower. You should be thanking Trump for his efforts to prevent this war from escalating further. Author's note: JD's tone shifts here, revealing a defensive edge. He's clearly frustrated by Zelensky's public critique, which he sees as undermining Trump's authority. His emphasis on gratitude reflects a transactional view of international relations, said, in exchange for loyalty. Zelensky's eyes narrowed, his voice sharpening. Zelensky: Have you ever been to our country? Have you seen the destruction? Have you talked to the mothers who've lost their sons? You sit here, behind your beautiful ocean, and lecture me about respect. But you don't feel the war. Not yet. But you will. The world is smaller than you think. Author's note: Zelensky's retort is cutting, a direct challenge to JD's privilege and detachment. His warning about the war reaching America is both a prediction and a threat, underscoring the interconnectedness of global conflicts. Trump interrupted, his voice booming, a mix of frustration and condescension. Trump: God bless you, Zelensky, but don't tell us how we're going to feel. We're trying to solve the problem. You're not in a position to dictate. We will feel good. We will feel very strong. Right now, you've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position. You're putting the lives of millions on the line. You're putting World War I too on the line. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country that has given you so much. Author's note: Trump's interruption is classic domineering, self-assured, and dismissive. His reference to World War I too is both a dramatic flourish and a calculated move to assert control over the narrative. His tone suggests he views Zelensky as a supplicant, not an equal. JD chimed in again, his tone cooler, but no less pointed. JD, have you ever said thank you? In October, you traveled to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition. Say a few words of appreciation to the United States and to Trump, who is trying to save your country. Author's note. JD's demand for gratitude reveals a transactional mindset, one that views aid as a favor to be repaid with loyalty. It's a stark contrast to Zelensky's emotional appeals, highlighting the cultural and political divide between the two men. Zelensky's response was sharp, his voice rising. Zelensky, you think if you talk very loudly about the war, it will help you. We remain in our country, and we remain strong. From the very beginning of the war, we were alone, and we are grateful to our fate for this. It is you who— Trump interrupted again, his tone dismissive. Trump, we've transferred $350 billion in military equipment through the stupid president. If you didn't have that, this war would have ended in 2 weeks, maybe 3 days, like Putin said, or maybe earlier. Author's note. Trump's interruption is both a boast and a rebuke, underscoring his belief in his own indispensability. His reference to the stupid president is a jab at Biden, revealing his obsession with undermining his predecessor. Zelensky shot back, his voice trembling with anger. Zelensky, don't. You don't understand what it's like to live under bombs. You don't understand what it's like to lose your people every day. Of course, we want to stop the war, but we need guarantees. Real guarantees. Author's note. Zelensky's response is raw and emotional, a plea for empathy and understanding. His demand for guarantees reflects his deep skepticism of empty promises born from years of betrayal. Trump leaned back, his tone shifting to one of finality. Trump, you'll get a ceasefire sooner than you think, but let me tell you, you have no trump cards. With us, you have trump cards. Without us, you have nothing. It's not going to be easy, but you'll have to fight. And if we leave, you'll have to fight alone. But you don't look very grateful, frankly. It's not very pleasant. Author's note. Trump's closing statement is a mix of threat and promise, underscoring his belief in his own indispensability. His reference to trump cards is both a play on his name and a reminder of his perceived power. His tone is dismissive, reflecting his transactional view of international relations. Now you will hear a shocking conversation between Trump and Putin that you have not heard before. Please check all the information mentioned in the official sources. I have no guarantees that the found dialogue is valid. After Zelensky left the Oval Office, Trump leaned back in his chair, his expression a mix of frustration and calculation. He glanced at the phone on his desk, then picked it up and dialed a familiar number. The call connected after a few rings, and Trump's voice took on a tone of casual authority. Trump. Vladimir, it's Donald. We need to talk about Zelensky. That guy is becoming a real problem. He's ungrateful, doesn't listen, and keeps pushing for more. I've given him everything: money, weapons, support, and he's still complaining. What do you think we should do? Author's note. Trump's tone here is less confrontational than with Zelensky, almost conspiratorial. He's positioning himself as the dealmaker, seeking Putin's input while subtly asserting his own power. Putin's response? Putin's voice was calm, almost amused. Donald, Zelensky is a stubborn man. He doesn't understand the realities of power. He thinks he can win this war, but he's wrong. If you want to solve this, you need to show him who's in charge. Cut off his support, and he'll come crawling back. He's weak, desperate. He'll fold under pressure. Author's note. Putin's response is calculated, reflecting his cold, pragmatic approach to geopolitics. He sees Zelensky as a pawn in a larger game, and his advice to Trump is both a test and a manipulation. Trump's counter? Trump chuckled, but there was an edge to his voice. I like the way you think, Vladimir, but we need to be careful. The world is watching. If we push too hard, it could backfire. Zelensky's got the media eating out of his hand. They love an underdog. If I cut him off, I'll look like the bad guy. Author's note. Trump's response reveals his awareness of the optics. He's wary of damaging his image. His tone is a mix of admiration for Putin's ruthlessness and caution about the potential fallout. Putin's epic statement. Putin's voice grew colder, more deliberate. Donald, Let me tell you something about Zelensky. He's a comedian who thinks he can play the hero, but heroes don't win, Warspower does. He's clinging to the idea that the West will save him, but the West is divided. Europe is tired of this war. America is tired of this war. And Zelensky? He's running out of time. If you want to end this, you need to show him there's no other option. No more weapons. No more money. Let him feel the weight of his decisions. Author's note: Putin's statement is chilling in its clarity. He's not just talking about Zelensky, he's talking about the broader geopolitical landscape. His words are a reminder of his own strategy patience, pressure, and the relentless pursuit of power. Trump's epic statement. Trump leaned forward, his voice rising. You know what, Vladimir? You're right. Zelensky's playing a dangerous game. He's putting the lives of millions on the line, and for what? Pride? Ego? He's got no trump cards left. None. With me, he had a chance. With me, he had leverage. But if he keeps pushing, he's going to find out what happens when the United States walks away. And let me tell you, it won't be pretty. He's playing with fire, and he's going to get burned. Author's note: Trump's statement is a mix of bravado and threat. He's positioning himself as the ultimate arbiter of power, the one who holds all the cards. His reference to trump cards is both a play on his name and a reminder of his perceived dominance. Putin's final words. Putin's tone softened slightly, but the underlying menace remained. Donald, you're a smart man. You know how this game is played. Zelensky is a distraction. The real question is what you want out of this. Do you want to be remembered as the president who ended the war, or the president who let it spiral out of control? The choice is yours. Author's note: Putin's final words are a masterstroke of manipulation. He's appealing to Trump's ego while subtly steering him toward a course of action that benefits Russia. His tone is almost paternal, but the threat is unmistakable. Trump's closing statement. Trump's voice was firm, resolute. I'll tell you what I want, Vladimir. I want to be remembered as the president who made the best deals. And if that means cutting Zelensky loose, so be it. But let's be clear, this isn't over. Not by a long shot. You and I, we're going to make history. But Zelensky? He's just a footnote. Author's note. Trump's closing statement is a mix of determination and self-aggrandizement. He's positioning himself as the ultimate deal-maker, the one who will shape the course of history. His tone is confident, but there's an undercurrent of uncertainty, a recognition that the stakes are higher than ever. What Zelensky will do? Zelensky will continue to push for more aid and guarantees, but his combative tone may alienate key allies. He'll likely seek alternative partnerships, perhaps with European nations or China, to offset his dependence on the US. What Trump will do? Trump will double down on his America First stance, using the crisis to bolster his image as a dealmaker. He may offer a ceasefire deal, but will demand significant concessions from Ukraine, potentially undermining Zelensky's position. What Putin will do? Putin will exploit the divisions between Ukraine and its allies, using the chaos to consolidate his gains. He may agree to a temporary ceasefire, but will continue to destabilize the region, betting on Western fatigue and infighting. Final author's conclusion. This conversation is a microcosm of the tensions between power, diplomacy, and desperation. Trump's bravado and transactional approach clash with Zelensky's raw emotion and demand for action. JD's measured pragmatism attempts to bridge the gap, but ultimately reveals the deep divides in how each leader views the world. At its core, this dialogue underscores the high stakes of global politics, where words can spark wars or forge peace, and where the fate of nations hangs in the balance.
The Fall of Titans. Chapter 1. The Summit. The world watched with bated breath as two of the most powerful men on the planet prepared to meet. Donald Trump, the brash and outspoken former president of the United States, and Vladimir Putin, the enigmatic and calculating president of Russia, were set to hold a private summit in Helsinki. The meeting was billed as a chance to ease tensions between their nations, but behind the scenes, both men had their own agendas. The summit began with the usual pomp and circumstance. Cameras flashed as the two leaders shook hands, their smiles masking the tension beneath. They exchanged pleasantries, praised each other's leadership, and posed for the cameras. But as soon as the doors closed and the press was ushered out, the atmosphere shifted. Chapter 2. The Argument. The meeting started cordially enough, with discussions about trade, nuclear arms, and global security. But it didn't take long for the conversation to turn heated. Trump, never one to mince words, accused Putin of meddling in U.S. elections and undermining American interests abroad. Putin, calm and composed, denied the allegations and fired back, accusing Trump of hypocrisy and arrogance. "You think you can bully the world, Donald?" Putin said, his voice icy. "But you are not as powerful as you believe." Trump's face turned red with anger. "You think you're so clever, Vladimir, but everyone sees through your games. You're a thug, plain and simple." The argument escalated, with both men hurling insults and accusations. Trump slammed his fist on the table, his voice booming. "You've been playing me for a fool this whole time, haven't you? All those meetings, all those promises, just lies." Putin leaned back in his chair, a smirk playing on his lips. "You were a useful tool, Donald, but tools can be replaced." The words hit Trump like a punch to the gut. For all his bravado, he had always craved Putin's respect, even admiration. To hear himself dismissed so casually was a blow to his ego and his pride. Chapter 3. The Betrayal. The argument reached a breaking point when Trump accused Putin of orchestrating a cyber attack on U.S. infrastructure, causing widespread chaos and economic damage. Putin denied involvement, but Trump wasn't buying it. "I have proof," Trump said, slamming a folder on the table. "Satellite images, intercepted communications, everything. You're not as untouchable as you think." Putin's smirk faded, replaced by a cold, steely glare. "Be careful, Donald. You do not want to make an enemy of me." Trump laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You think I'm scared of you? I'm the President of the United States." "Not anymore," Putin said quietly. "And even when you were never in control." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Trump felt a chill run down his spine. He had always known Putin was dangerous, but he had never felt truly threatened until now. Chapter 4. The Fallout. The summit ended in disaster, with both men storming out without so much as a handshake. The press was left scrambling for answers, but neither side offered any explanation. Behind the scenes, however, the fallout was immediate and devastating. Trump returned to the U.S. to find his political allies turning against him. Leaks from the summit painted him as reckless and unstable, and his approval ratings plummeted. Putin, meanwhile, used the failed meeting as propaganda, portraying Trump as a weak and ineffectual leader. But the personal toll was even greater. Trump, once so confident and self-assured, began to doubt himself. He had always seen himself as a deal-maker, a master negotiator. But his confrontation with Putin had exposed his vulnerabilities, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he had been outplayed. Chapter 5. The Heartbreak. Months passed, and the world moved on. But for Trump, the wounds from the summit never healed. He became increasingly isolated, lashing out at friends and allies alike. His family, once his greatest source of pride, began to distance themselves, unable to bear the weight of his anger and bitterness. One night, as he sat alone in his Mar-a-Lago estate, Trump received a call from an unknown number. Against his better judgment, he answered. "Donald," came Putin's voice, calm and measured, "I thought you should know the cyber attack you accused me of. It was not me. It was someone else, someone much closer to home." Trump's heart raced. "What are you talking about?" Putin chuckled softly. "You were so eager to blame me that you never stopped to consider the truth. Your enemies are not abroad, Donald. They are right here, in your own country." The line went dead, leaving Trump staring at the phone in stunned silence. He felt a wave of nausea as the realization hit him. He had been played, not just by Putin, but by his own people. Chapter 6. The Reckoning. The revelation shattered Trump. He spent days locked in his room, refusing to eat or sleep. His mind raced with thoughts of betrayal and revenge, but he knew he was powerless to act. His political career was over, his legacy in ruins. In a moment of desperation, he reached out to Putin, begging for help. But the Russian leader was cold and dismissive. "You had your chance, Donald," Putin said, "but you were too blind to see the truth. Now you must live with the consequences." Trump hung up, his hands trembling. He felt a profound sense of loss, not just for his career, but for the man he had once been. He had always believed he was invincible, but now he saw the truth. He was just a pawn in a game he could never win. Chapter 7. The End. In the weeks that followed, Trump withdrew from public life entirely. He was rarely seen, and when he was, he looked like a shadow of his former self. The man who had once commanded the world's attention was now a recluse, haunted by his failures and regrets. One night, as he sat alone in the dark, Trump received a final call. It was Putin. "I called to say goodbye, Donald," Putin said. "Our game is over. You were a worthy opponent, but in the end, you were never a match for me." Trump didn't respond. He simply hung up the phone and sat in silence, staring at the wall. He felt a deep, aching sadness, not just for himself, but for the world he had once dreamed of leading. As the hours passed, the weight of his failures became too much to bear. In the quiet of the night, Donald Trump took his final breath, a broken man who had lost everything. Chapter 8. The World Reacts. News of Donald Trump's death spread like wildfire. Headlines around the globe declared the end of an era, with some mourning the loss of a larger-than-life figure and others reflecting on the controversies that had defined his life and career. Social media exploded with reactions, ranging from heartfelt tributes to scathing critiques. The world was divided, as it had always been when it came to Trump. In Moscow, Vladimir Putin watched the news unfold with a mixture of satisfaction and unease. He had won their final game, but the victory felt hollow. Trump had been a worthy adversary, a man who had challenged him in ways few others had. Now, with Trump gone, Putin felt a strange emptiness. The world seemed quieter, less interesting. Chapter 9. Putin's Reflection. Putin sat alone in his office, the weight of his thoughts pressing down on him. He had always prided himself on his ability to outmaneuver his opponents, to stay one step ahead. But now, as he reflected on his rivalry with Trump, he began to question the cost of his victories. He thought about the phone call he had made to Trump in his final days. It had been a calculated move, designed to remind Trump of his defeat. But now, Putin wondered if it had been unnecessary, even cruel. He had always seen politics as a game, but the death of his rival made him realize that the stakes were far higher than he had allowed himself to believe. Chapter 10. The Legacy. As the days turned into weeks, the world began to move on. Trump's death became just another chapter in history, his legacy debated by scholars and pundits alike. But for those who had known him personally, the loss was more profound. In the United States, Trump's family struggled to come to terms with his death. His children, who had once been his closest allies, now found themselves adrift, unsure of how to carry on his legacy. His supporters mourned the loss of a leader they had believed in, while his critics grappled with the complexities of his impact. In Russia, Putin found himself increasingly isolated. The death of his rival had left a void that no one else could fill. He began to withdraw from public life, spending more time in his dacha outside Moscow. The man who had once seemed invincible now looked tired, worn down by the weight of his own power. Chapter 11. The Reckoning. One evening, as Putin sat alone in his dacha, he received an unexpected visitor. It was Sergei, a former intelligence officer who had once been one of his most trusted advisors. Sergei had retired years ago, but he had always remained loyal to Putin. "Vladimir," Sergei said, his voice grave, "we need to talk." Putin nodded, gesturing for Sergei to sit. The two men spoke for hours, discussing the state of the world and the challenges that lay ahead. But as the conversation turned to Trump, Putin's demeanor changed. "I never wanted it to end like this," Putin admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "He was a fool, yes, but he was also formidable." Sergei nodded, his expression thoughtful. "You played the game well, Vladimir, but games have consequences, and now the world is watching to see what you will do next." Putin sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know, Sergei. I don't know what comes next." Chapter 12. The New Order. In the months that followed, the global political landscape began to shift. With Trump gone, new leaders emerged, each vying for power and influence. The United States, once the dominant superpower, found itself struggling to maintain its position. Russia, too, faced challenges, as internal dissent grew and external pressures mounted. Putin, once the undisputed master of the game, found himself increasingly out of step with the changing world. His tactics, once so effective, now seemed outdated. The younger generation, hungry for change, began to question his leadership. In a rare moment of vulnerability, Putin addressed the nation, acknowledging the challenges they faced and calling for unity. But his words rang hollow, and the people could sense his uncertainty. Chapter 13. The End of an Era. As the years passed, Putin's influence waned. He stepped down from power, retiring to his dacha and fading into obscurity. The man who had once commanded the world's attention was now a relic of a bygone era. In his final years, Putin spent much of his time reflecting on his life and legacy. He thought often of Trump, the rival who had both frustrated and fascinated him. He wondered if things might have been different if they had been able to find common ground, if they had been able to see each other not as enemies, but as men with shared struggles and dreams. But it was too late for such thoughts. The game was over, and the world had moved on. It's a story about legacy, regret, and the unpredictable nature of power, reminding us that even the most powerful figures are ultimately human, with all the flaws and vulnerabilities that entails. The end. What do you think about this story? Write in the comments, subscribe, and wait for the next video. It will show you the true essence of a person who shocks you. If you don't subscribe, you will make a huge mistake.